Chapters 35 and 36 of The Mirror of the Sea. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Mirror of the Sea by Joseph Conrad. Initiation, Chapter 35. "Ships!" exclaimed an elderly seaman in clean-shore togs. "Ships!" and his keen glance, turning away from my face, ran along the vista of magnificent figureheads that in the late '70s used to overhang in a serried rank the muddy pavement by the side of the New South Dock. "Ships are all right. It's the men in 'em." 50 hulls at least, moulded on lines of beauty and speed, hulls of wood, of iron, expressing in their forms the highest achievement of modern shipbuilding, lay moored all in a row, stem to quay, as if assembled there for an exhibition, not of a great industry, but of a great art. Their colours were grey, black, dark green, with a narrow strip of yellow moulding defining their sheer, or with a row of painted ports decking in warlike decoration their robust flanks of cargo carriers that would know no triumph but of speed in carrying a burden, no glory other than of a long service, no victory but that of an endless, obscure contest with the sea. The great empty hulls with swept holds, just out of dry dock, with their paint glistening freshly, sat high-sided with ponderous dignity alongside the wooden jetties, looking more like unmovable buildings than things meant to go afloat. Others, half-loaded, far on the way to recover the true sea physiognomy of a ship brought down to her load line, looked more accessible. Their less steeply slanting gangways seemed to invite the strolling sailors in search of a berth to walk on board and try for a chance with the chief mate, the guardian of a ship's efficiency. As if anxious to remain unperceived amongst their overtopping sisters, 2 or 3 Finnish ships floated low, with an air of straining at the leash of their level headfasts, exposing to view their cleared decks and covered hatches, prepared to drop stern first out of the labouring ranks, displaying the true comeliness of form which only her proper sea trim gives to a ship. And for a good quarter of a mile, from the dockyard gate to the farthest corner, where the old housed-in hulk, the President, drill ship then of the Naval Reserve, used to lie with her frigate side rubbing against the stone of the quay, above all these hulls, ready and unready, 150 lofty masts, more or less, held out the web of their rigging like an immense net, in whose close mesh, black against the sky, the heavy yards seemed to be entangled and suspended. It was a sight. The humblest craft that floats makes its appeal to a seaman by the faithfulness of her life, and this was the place where one beheld the aristocracy of ships. It was a noble gathering of the fairest and the swiftest, each bearing at the bow the carved emblem of her name as in a gallery of plaster casts, figures of women with mural crowns, women with flowing robes, with gold fillets on their hair or blue scarves round their waists, stretching out rounded arms as if to point the way, heads of men helmeted or bare, full lengths of warriors, of kings, of statesmen, of lords and princesses, all white from top to toe, with here and there a dusky turbaned figure, bedizened in many colours of some Eastern sultan or hero, all inclined forward under the slant of mighty bowsprits, as if eager to begin another run of 11,000 miles in their leaning attitudes. These were the fine figureheads of the finest ships afloat. And why, unless for the love of the life those effigies shared with us in their wandering impassivity, should one try to reproduce in words an impression of whose fidelity there can be no critic and no judge, since such an exhibition of the art of shipbuilding and the art of figurehead carving as was seen from year's end to year's end in the open-air gallery of the New South Dock, no man's eye shall behold again. All that patient, pale company of queens and princesses, of kings and warriors, of allegorical women, of heroines and statesmen and heathen gods, crowned, helmeted, bareheaded, has run for good off the sea, stretching to the last above the tumbling foam their fair rounded arms, holding out their spears, swords, shields, tridents, in the same unwearied, striving forward pose. And nothing remains but, lingering perhaps in the memory of a few men, the sound of their names, vanished a long time ago from the first page of the great London dailies, from big posters in railway stations and the doors of shipping offices, from the minds of sailors, dockmasters, pilots, and tugmen, from the hail of gruff voices and the flutter of signal flags exchanged between ships closing upon each other and drawing apart in the open immensity of the sea. The elderly, respectable seaman, withdrawing his gaze from that multitude of spars, gave me a glance to make sure of our fellowship in the craft and mystery of the sea. We had met casually, and had got into contact as I had stopped near him, my attention being caught by the same peculiarity he was looking at in the rigging of an obviously new ship, a ship with her reputation all to make, yet in the talk of the seamen who were to share their life with her. Her name was already on her lips. I had heard it uttered between two thick, red-necked fellows of the semi-nautical type at the Fenchurch Street railway station, where, in those days, the everyday male crowd was attired in jersey and pilot cloth mostly, and had the air of being more convenient with the times of high water than with the times of the trains. I had noticed that new ship's name on the first page of my morning paper. I had stared at the unfamiliar grouping of its letters, blue on white ground, on the advertisement boards, whenever the train came to a standstill alongside one of the shabby wooden wharf-like platforms of the dock railway line. She had been named, with proper observances, on the day she came off the stocks, no doubt, but she was very far yet from having a name. Untried, ignorant of the ways of the sea, she had been thrust amongst that renowned company of ships to load for her maiden voyage. There was nothing to vouch for her soundness and the worth of her character, but the reputation of the building yard whence she was launched headlong into the world of waters. She looked modest to me. I imagined her diffident, lying very quiet, with her side nestling shyly against the wharf to which she was made fast with very new lines, intimidated by the company of her tried and experienced sisters, already familiar with all the violences of the ocean and the exacting love of men. They had had more long voyages to make their names in than she had known weeks of carefully tended life, for a new ship receives as much attention as if she were a young bride. Even crabbed old dockmasters look at her with benevolent eyes. In her shyness at the threshold of a laborious and uncertain life, where so much is expected of a ship, she could not have been better heartened and comforted had she only been able to hear and understand than by the tone of deep conviction in which my elderly, respectable seaman repeated the first